just as a spot job, just to kind of figure out what I was going to do and maybe move away. But little did I know that job would turn into nearly 7 years. I walked into an administration that was completely out of control. I'll admit there was Office of Inspector General investigations. They were about 4 audits behind, and we all know how important those audits are every year to submit timely on an annual basis. So I kind of walked into this mess, so to speak, without knowing anything about Indian housing. I had a business degree and I thought that was good enough, but it really wasn't. If it wasn't for the trainings I received through NAIHC and through other TA providers, I wouldn't have learned this industry. So that's why I feel so passionate about working with NAIHC and promoting, successful trainings that people can utilize not only in their jobs, but within their communities to kind of broaden the perspective, not just helping renters, but also counseling potential home, community members to be home buyers. That was always a strong push that we always had within the organization I worked for. And I worked my way from being the receptionist to being the interim CFO to being the procurement officer to eventually being the deputy executive director. Then I just made a big decision in 2017. I saw a job with NAIHC and I thought maybe I could do something broader at a national scale. So I took the job. It's now been going on 3 years and it was a big transition, but I love working for NAIHC. I love living here in Washington, DC. And I love meeting all the people that I do on an annual basis. We'll kind of use 2020 as the exception since we didn't have any live events. We've all had to transition to the changes that the pandemic has raged upon us. But going into this virtual environment, it works. It's not ideal. I would rather be presenting to you in person. I used to love to travel. I used to love to present trainings and assist at trainings and just to meet people, to meet not only the NAIHC membership, but just people within the network, within Indian housing in general. And that includes our subject matter experts, the different consultants like Seven Sisters, and then also collaborating with associations like the South Dakota Native Homeownership Coalition, which is a organization that I highly admire. So the work that all of you do it's incredible. Don't think it's unnoticed. I know some tribes are kind of envious of what is being accomplished with your organization. And that just gives me even more pride of being here to talk to you today. So I'm going to present a short PowerPoint. It's gonna be very short.
Well, before you do that, Ryan, thank you. I appreciate you giving us the history of sort of like your personal trajectory to where you're at now. That's really colorful. It also just really validates sort of what is happening on the ground. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the practitioners here, they are really trying to figure out how to do this thoughtfully. I know folks are really curious about like, what is this virtual session for the community? How's that going to enhance what they're doing, right? And mm-hmm. So thank you for that colorful background. I always think it's important for folks to get a sense of the context of you and how you understand community, and also now at the national level, really seeing how that all works. The other thing I wanted to just also acknowledge, as at working with us, is that Fannie Mae is a part of this initiative and helping us to do more work and providing training and tools for the Home Buyer Readiness Committee within the South Dakota Housing Coalition. So I just want to thank Fannie Mae. I see my hand here, so to just thank Fannie Mae for that, and also again thank you for that introduction. So thanks.
Yes. Oh, and indeed with Fannie Mae, with this program would have been made possible without assistance through Fannie Mae and also through Wells Fargo Bank. They contributed sponsorship to the production of our, not only the Pathways Home eLearning program, but also our other eLearning course that we have offered, Indian Housing Management. But they have been great partners and we continue working forward with them. And they have been spectacular what they have offered to us. So I'm going to share my screen in a moment. I'm going to present a very short PowerPoint that I presented for our legal symposium last December, but we'll go a little bit deeper. But the most important thing that you're going to get today is you are going to be the very first group that is going to see our new Pathways Home e-learning course. I'm going to show you the actual platform and the lesson, and it's still in its beta form, so it's not ready for release until possibly in the next couple weeks, but you'll get to see it live today, which I hope that everybody likes what they see and can utilize this in their housing counseling needs. So just give me one moment while I share my screen. Hopefully there's no interruptions. Okay. So all of you I know with South Dakota Native Homeownership Coalition have been utilizing Pathways Home in your housing counseling needs and in your homebuyer education. So it's not a program that is unfamiliar. It is actually one of the top programs that we offer at NAIHC to provide the guidance and assistance for potential homeowners, and to kind of further the mission that most housing authorities have nationwide in helping our people become homeowners, to kind of reduce the amount of people we have in our rental units, and to ultimately just build more units so that we can house our people in safe sanitary conditions. So Pathways Home has been around since 2003. So it's had a long run, and it is fully endorsed through NeighborWorks America, which all of you may know is the leading organization that provides certification to potential homebuyers and to trainers. And it is the only curriculum that is designed for Native people. And it has been written in a context that is relatable and understandable to tribal communities. And I personally feel it is one of the finest products that we have to offer here at NAIHC. So ultimately, Pathways Home, helps Native people and their families develop the skills that are required to purchase a home and to obtain financing, even people who never thought they could own a home. This tool, Pathways Home, could help people learn what they can achieve, what they can potentially own as a home buyer. So the course has been around since 2003, and we have approximately 108 certified Pathways instructors. I know that maybe some of you, I haven't seen the exact list, but I know that some of you watching right now may be a certified instructor. I know that within the Rocky Mountain West, it's been very popular in offering the Pathways Home courses, and that many people have been qualified to obtain mortgage lending and to achieve the home of their dreams, so to speak. But the course was only available through live trainings, whether it was just a one day 8-hour training, or whether the housing authority decided to do a sequence of trainings. It was always live, and not all housing authorities had the capacity to completely offer the program. And just kind of going back to when I worked with my tribe at Eastern Shoshone Housing, though we were qualified to teach the Pathways Home courses, we didn't really have the internal capacity to make it happen. And I used to always wish back then, why don't we have an online class? Something that tribal members can access on their own, they can take the class on their own, and then receive a certificate to prove that they did receive a level homebuyer education that would qualify them for any tribally sponsored, down payment assistance, closing cost assistance, or even just to obtain the loan in general with the Section 184 program. Little did I know about 3 years later, after I had this conversation with an old coworker, that I'd be working here at NAIHC and we would develop this actual online class. So this year, actually in a few weeks, we are releasing Pathways Home for the home buyer. This is not a train the trainer course. I'll go into that in a little bit later on how we're redeveloping that course, but this class is specifically for potential home buyers. So if you don't have a robust home buyer education program at your housing authority or your small organization, this is an option to enhance your housing counseling to potential home buyers, that they can take the course at their own pace online. So I think this is very exciting. This is something that I would probably have personally have done given the opportunity, several years ago. But it is something that I am very pleased and proud that we are about to offer. Now, the overall course comprises 6 lessons, and these are the 6 main lessons that are taken directly from the existing Pathways Home curriculum that covers the gamut of home buyer readiness, how to calculate your income to see if you are eligible, how to find the home, how to apply for home loans, and ultimately at the end, how to protect your assets. And each lesson is self-paced and they're narrated. And after this PowerPoint, I will show you the actual course on how, just so you can see the quality that we have put into the development of our courses. But ultimately, we wanted to make sure that the entire curriculum is being presented to the participant in a very general format that also includes assessments. So each lesson contains a five question assessment at the end. And our assessments have been a little challenging, not so much for this course, but for our Indian housing management course. The trouble people are having is when you miss a question in the exam, you don't know what you have missed. So the object of that and the theory behind that is that you need to continue researching each question and utilizing the resources that we have made available so you can successfully answer each question. So if you miss one question, you cannot move on to the next level. So that just encourages people to continue taking the lessons over and over until they completely grasp the knowledge and are able to pass the exam and move on to the next lesson. It can be daunting. I personally took this Pathways Home course in about 6 hours. When we were reviewing the second version of the course, we all have to review each lesson, but it took me 6 hours. But that is also from someone who has existing industry knowledge. So, I knew a lot of the answers already, but I can probably estimate that local homebuyers or people brand new to this field will probably take about maybe 3 days to complete this course. That's if they're dedicated completely, working on it every day, but it's self-paced. They have the option to take as long or as quick as they need to complete the course. And in comparison to our Indian housing management course, Pathways Home is considerably shorter. It's about half the lessons that are presented in Indian housing management, because the content of Indian housing management is so huge that it could only be narrowed down to 11 lessons. But Pathways Home is a bit more succinct with 6 lessons. And once participants complete the course, they are automatically issued a certificate of completion that they can submit to the tribe, to the housing authority, or to a lending agency to prove that they had successfully completed the home buyer education requirements. Now, throughout the Pathways Home curriculum, you see quotes and you see stories and case studies from different people within Native America that have achieved their home buying goals And I love this one particular quote that we have in Pathways where it says, "Our homeland can never be regained, but we carried on and made a new start. And now we have a place we can call home again." I love that because it makes you think. You know, as Native people, we've had to endure a lot of changes throughout our existence. But one important thing that we've always held true is that there is home, the concept and the idea of home. And that is something as housing counselors that we need to constantly project to our people, that, you know, home buying is very important because, excuse the cliche, you know, home is where the heart is. Homes are very important to Native people. And with programs that are available to tribes, such as the 184 home loan program and the education programs like Pathways, it could help people and tribal members understand the importance of owning a home and to appreciate what they can achieve through through home ownership. And that is something at NAIHC that we are very proud to promote, and something that we are evidently trying to provide to the masses, so to speak. So this is a class that we would like to have expanded throughout the country, and through organizations like the South Dakota Native Homeownership Coalition, you know, your promotion would be incredible. And I know that this can be a valuable tool that all of you can utilize in addition to existing homeownership counseling and education, but also as a standalone. If you don't have the capabilities to offer the full spectrum of courses, that you can at least offer your tribal members the opportunity to learn online the benefits of homeownership and how to obtain that. And like I mentioned earlier, we would like to thank Wells Fargo and Fannie Mae ultimately for making this happen. Honestly, to produce these courses, they're not cheap, and we need sponsorship and assistance to make these e-learning courses accessible to people. And without their support, it wouldn't have made possible. So that is the end of this short little presentation I have. So I'm excited to dive in right now into the actual course. So let me stop this share, and I'm going to open up my browser so you can see the new e-learning courses that we have to offer. But before I do that, do we have any questions on the table? I'm looking at the chats. I'm not really seeing any specific questions, but would anyone like to add anything or have any questions to ask before I show you the actual course? Okay. I am going to open this up. Just give me 1 second here.
Brian, there is a question. Is there a cost to the consumer?
Yes, there is. And I was going to get into that at the end, but we haven't decided exactly the cost. I know that some states, like my state in Wyoming, for instance, the Wyoming Community Development Authority, which is our state housing authority, they do have an online course that is a homebuyer education course, and it's $75. So we're scheduling a meeting next week to decide exactly what the pricing structure is going to be, but it's going to be anywhere from $50 to $100. And housing authorities may purchase those in bulk or individually, or the individual home buyer can also access the course on their own, but there will be a fee attached. Okay, I'm just going through my screen, just one moment. I have to open up my browser real quick. Don't we just love virtual learning right now? You know, I work on Zoom all the time, but it's when actually doing a presentation, sometimes they can get a little nerve-wracking. It's like, oh my God, I don't want to mess this up. Let's see, my browser isn't showing. Let me just give me 1 second here. Which is funny because I practiced this before we came on and now it is not showing up.
Of course you did, right? Every time we get everything ready.
I know. It's always like this but I've dealt with enough Zoom sessions right now that I could, I've seen so many other mistakes, which is kind of silly because I was going to share a video yesterday that I seen with this man that was on a court channel and he was in a cat filter. It was hilarious. So if you guys look it up on YouTube, Zoom session cat, and you'll see it. It's hilarious because this man could not get the filter off of his Zoom window. And it was like a serious, court situation and he was an attorney. It was hilarious, but can everyone see the screen that I am showing right now? Can you see it, Vicki? Okay. Yeah. Now this is the first lesson. It is actually the introduction of the Pathways Home e-learning for the home buyer course. So I'm going to start it and
Native people have traditionally been owners of land and homes which have provided them more than just shelter. The home has been a center for community, family, spirituality, and safety. Take a few moments to think about traditional shelters in your community. How did your people traditionally live? What type of shelter did they build? Did they live in longhouses or pit houses, wigwams, or teepees? Pueblos, hogans, Hawaiian halis, Alaskan sod homes? Also, what materials were the homes made from? Were the homes used for shelter, spiritual practice, or community meetings? Native Americans have come a long way, from traditional to modern homes.
Okay, that was the initial introduction to the course, but it shows you the quality of the course with the narration and the graphics. And this is how all of our e-learning courses within our Leadership Institute are going to be offered, is in this type of format, which is, I think it's a bit refreshing from the traditional Zoom or virtual sessions or teleconferencing that we're used to and that we're doing right now. This is a little bit more of a quality type of product. But when you're in the act, this is exactly how it's going to look when you log into the system and when you access the course. So I'm just going to explain a few of the functions. Now, if you click on the right-hand side, you can access the menu per each lesson. And you can jump back and forth. You can, as many times as you want. Once you watch it, that's not the end of it. You can always go back. You can always review. So let's just kind of jump through here. Let's look, I'll show the clip for the history. Let's see. This could be useful to a lot of us, so I'll go ahead and play the historical perspective of Indian housing, because this first lesson actually is just more or less a snapshot of the Indian housing industry and potential programs that you can be eligible for, and just an idea of how far we have come, so to speak. So this is the historical perspective of Indian housing.
Traditionally, Native people's homes created a center for shelter, community, family, spirituality, and safety. In 1937, the United States Housing Act was passed to provide safe and sanitary dwellings for America's poor. In the 1960s, tribal governments became eligible to establish Indian housing authorities under the 1937 Housing Act. The Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, launched the initiative to provide federal housing assistance under the 1937 Housing Act. This created a pathway to the many housing programs operating today in Native communities, with the passage of the Native American Housing and Self-Determination Act of 1996.
So that was a brief historical perspective. Then just to move on through the course, you just have to click the arrows as
Historically, Native communities provided for all their needs. Over the years, history has disrupted the balance Natives enjoyed amongst the home, family, and community. In the 20th century, federal programs dominated housing in American Indian and Alaska Native communities. BIA sought to meet its trust responsibility by providing shelter through its Housing Improvement Program, or HIP. HUD offered the following housing programs to Native housing authorities: low-rent housing, mutual help, turnkey, and Section 8. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, or VA, provides a loan program serving housing needs on and off the reservation.
Okay, so that was just a little snapshot of the type of federal programs that are available. So I'm going to also show you the exam. Now let's go with the exercise first, because with all of our e-learning classes, now and in the future, we want to make them as interactive as possible. It's not just listening to a narration, but we also want to throw in what's called gamification. We throw in a few little games, quizzes, activities, just to reinforce the knowledge and the content of the course. So I'm going to show you an example of an exercise.
Here is a homeownership readiness exercise. Select the yes or no option to find out your readiness for homeownership.
Now, this is a very simple exercise, but we'll go through it real quickly. So the first one is, do you pay your bills on time? I'm going to say yes, because I always try to. Do you have a good credit history? Yes. Do you have a steady job history? We'll say yes. And are you willing to put your monthly house payment before other wants and desires? Well, if you want to continue living where you are, you have to pay that bill. So I will make sure that I make my house payment. So I think that'll be more important than going out or having dinner or whatever. And then, are you willing to save money each month for future repairs and maintenance? We'll say yes.
If most of your answers are yes, this course will help you with your journey. Remember, becoming a homeowner requires time and preparation, but it's never too late to begin.
Indeed. So that was a very simple exercise in this lesson one. But as we progress through the course, the exercises get a little bit more challenging, or there's case studies that need to be studied, and you have to answer questions. But I mentioned earlier about the exams. We're going to go over this first exam or assessment, sorry. There are only 5 questions per lesson. And
you have come to the end of lesson 1 of Pathways Home, a native homeownership guide. It is time to check your learning. There are 5 questions in this lesson assessment. You must answer all 5 questions correctly based on your learning so far. You get an unlimited number of attempts until you get it right. You cannot proceed to the next lesson until you answer all the questions correctly. Click Start to begin the assessment.
And like I mentioned earlier, that is the key statement. You cannot proceed to the next lesson until you answer all the questions correctly. And like I mentioned, you won't know which question you missed, or you will know which questions you got right, and once you complete all 5 questions correctly. But we'll go through the assessment just step by step so that everyone can kind of get an idea of the type of assessment that's going to be required of potential participants, and for all of you to be able to possibly offer assistance as we go along with this. And one thing I forgot to mention earlier, but throughout the course platform, you'll see photos. You may see people you know, you may even see yourself. We used a lot of photos from our NAIHC archives, from our training archives, and we received a lot of photos through CLO Gibson, who has been one of our lead trainers in Pathways Home, and she was also our lead subject matter expert in producing this class. So she took lots of photos throughout her time presenting this course, and we utilized those throughout this particular platform just to kind of show the different people, the different practitioners of the Pathways Home curriculum and of people who have obtained certified status as a Pathways instructor. So aside from that, we'll go on through the assessment. So question 1 is, the 2 primary housing programs that exist throughout Indian country are, our options are mutual help, HUD low rent, the Housing Improvement Program, HIP, or the VA loan. Now we know that these are all housing programs that we utilize, but from the lessons you'll learn that the 2 primary are going to be mutual help and the HUD low rent. Namely because those were the original housing programs designed through the 1937 Housing Act, that many housing programs are still operating and utilizing today. So submit that answer. Then it goes on to the next question, where the blank program provides a guaranteed loan to purchase a home on trust land in Native communities. Now, I think all of us know the answer to this. One of the most popular mortgage programs for Native people is the Section 184 Loan Guarantee Program. Okay, question 3, identify eligible uses for the Section 184 Loan Guarantee Program. So our options are purchase an existing home, build a new home, rehab a home, and all of the above. I think all of us could unanimously agree that it is all of the above, because we know with the program that you can purchase an existing home, you can buy a new home, or you can build a new home, or you can rehab an existing home, which is what makes the program so great. So question 4, most people borrow the money to purchase a home. This type of loan is referred to as a home blank. So we all know that if you're going to borrow money, you're going to have to take out a loan. And typically for a home, it's going to be a mortgage loan. Okay, this is actually the last question in the assessment. Which of the following are costs associated with processing a mortgage application? So our options are appraisal, origination, and inspection, or all of the above. And we know that when processing a mortgage application, once we reviewed the Pathways curriculum, that it would be all of the above. To process the application, you need to have an appraisal, you need to have an origination fee, and you need to have inspection fees. And all those are involved in any type of mortgage lending. So our correct answer would be all of the above.
Congratulations, you have completed the first lesson of this course. You have answered all questions correctly. Click Review Quiz for a recap.
When you take our e-learning courses, to get the congratulations notification at the end is the best because that means you get to move on to the next course. Because if you don't, it'll tell you you have not passed and you need to retake the exam, and you're gonna have to keep retrying it until you get every answer correct. But what I love is that once you pass the course, at least you have an option to review each of the answers. So each question it will show what the correct answers were. So you could review. However, this is not, like I mentioned, this is not provided if you miss a question. You won't know which question you miss. And that just furthers the idea that you need to continue doing research to locate the correct answers. And with that, it furthers your knowledge and comprehension of the subject matter so that you can lock it completely in your head and it's always there.
Congratulations, you have completed.
Okay. And then throughout every lesson, we also have the ability to to access resources, and we have a resource library on the NAIHC website that will be linked directly to the LMS or to the course for you to access. And it also has the different handouts that are included with each lesson. And a lot of these are taken directly from the Pathways Home existing curriculum. So people have the participants have the ability to get a summary of the content per lesson in a PDF form that they could print or they could utilize however they wish. Okay. So when you access the e-learning resources for both of our classes, whether it be Indian Housing Management or Pathways Home, this is the page that you will arrive to on the NAIHC website. So you'll see all of the different links that open up different appendices and attachments that are throughout the Pathways Home curriculum. Like let's open up a factor table, for instance. See right here, we have the factor table, which is very popular, a very popular tool throughout the Pathways Home curriculum on how to determine potential mortgage costs per month. We have those types of documents available for your use. And these aren't locked resources either. I mean, the general public, you can access these right now if you wanted to. So I'll make that clear that, you know, we have these resources available at NAIHC for everybody. So that's just a snapshot of our resources. And just a side note, right now we are updating the NAIHC website. And so the format may look a little different when we actually start offering the course, but ultimately it'll have these resources available at all times for participants. Do I have any questions? Because I was going to show you, I'll show you another lesson just to kind of get an example, because the introduction is different than a lot of the other more specific lessons that we have to offer. Let's see.
There was only one question earlier that Deborah had asked, and it was the first, I think, assessment that you had. It's like, what if you check a bunch of no's?
Do you want to try it out? Let's see.
Homeownership has its own pros and cons.
So that was in the homebuyer readiness exercise.
Here is a homeownership readiness exercise. Select the yes or no option to find out your readiness for homeownership.
Oh, and another thing too, you can always like rewind and
select the yes or no option.
Or like say you went through it numerous times and you didn't want to hear this all over again, you can just scroll all the way to the end. Okay, so let's answer no on all this. Let's see what they say.
If most of your answers are no, then you are not ready for homeownership yet.
So this particular exercise is a little straightforward. Because you really aren't ready for homeownership if you can't pay your bills on time and you don't have good credit and you don't have a steady job. But so this is like one of the most general exercises. Let's just look at another lesson just to kind of see. I'm going to have to exit out of this screen, but let's see.
So have you all, I'm curious about, I know that this is the first time you're debuting it and sharing what's in here. Have you all used a small sample to go through with some consumers?
Not yet. We've mostly utilized the NAIHC staff to review each of the lessons, because it's actually a really daunting experience to review these lessons. And the hardest part is when you get to the audio narrated portions. I don't know if any of you caught it, but in the introduction, there is some pronunciation problems, like how he pronounced Pueblo. He says Pueblo. You know, So there's little things like that we have to work with the production team, and they are based in India. In full disclosure, we were working with a group in India called G-Cube to produce our online courses and also to administer our learning management system. So there is a lot of language and dialect issues that we have to work with. And just reviewing the audio narration on these courses, it's very challenging. But like I said, this is not the final version because there was a couple images and some pronunciations that I noticed that are going to be fixed in the final version. But let's see. This is lesson 2, budgeting for homeownership and calculating affordability. And for those of you that know, this is kind of the most challenging subject area of Pathways, is teaching the affordability calculations. So,
Welcome to Lesson 2, Budgeting for Homeownership and Calculating Affordability of the Pathways Home, a Native Homeownership Guide course. Click Start to begin.
okay.
This course comprises 6 lessons. To get your certification of completion for the course, you must go through each of the 6 lessons thoroughly and complete the final assessment at the end of the course. You must also complete the quiz at the end of each lesson to progress to the next lesson. Click each lesson to view its brief description. After going through each brief description, click X to continue.
So every lesson, I just showed you the introduction. So this is the first lesson. That's why you see the course outline, but each preceding lesson will follow this, this type of introduction where you have to navigate through each of the lessons. And once you click on them, it gives just a brief synopsis of what each lesson will entail. And then this is one important thing throughout our learning system is you have to click X, because you think that you would just be able to hit lesson 2. Well, actually it worked this time. See, they fixed that because this is not the original version, but you just go through each lesson to see what it entails. But different windows will have options where you open up different windows to get further insight that aren't fully narrated. So let's go to another lesson here.
There's a question here. It says, there is a final assessment. Do we have to pass with 100%?
Yes. You will not be able to proceed to the next lesson because each lesson has its own assessment. Because as you know that with the assessments with our traditional homebuyer education, it's typically a 50-question test at the end. This is 5 questions after each lesson. So you cannot proceed to the next lesson until you can successfully 100% pass it. So let me, I know having taken Pathways Home Trainer and having attended this class, as a civilian, so to speak, I thought that the most challenging part of Pathways Home is the calculations, like calculating debt to income ratio, et cetera. So let's see how the course teaches that concept.
The procedure to determine your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance has multiple steps, as shown here. To understand the procedure, let's consider the scenario of Donna and Thomas Cypress. Click each step to learn more. After going through each pop-up, click X to continue. The first step is to calculate the Cypress family's gross annual income. Both Donna and Thomas are paid twice a month, which translates into 24 paychecks a year. As shown in the table, Donna earns $1,500 twice a month, and Thomas earns $1,000 twice a month. Donna's gross annual income is $36,000, and Thomas's gross annual income is $24,000. their total gross annual income equals $60,000.
So then you move on to the next step, which will calculate the GMI.
To compute their GMI, Donna divides their total gross annual income of $60,000 by 12, which equals $5,000. Now that they know that they have a monthly budget of $5,000, the Cypress family must decide on a loan product so that they can budget their money to allow for a home purchase. Donna and Thomas chose a loan product with a debt-to-income ratio of 41% and a housing expense ratio of 30%.
I'm not going to show every single step since we're have 8 minutes left, but this is just an overview example of the content that is expressed through our e-learning and the types of subject matter that will be presented to our participants that is very close to the actual homebuyer education classes that you may have been offering in person. So I would like to take the end of this to entertain any specific questions anyone might have.
Yes, thank you so much, Brian, for allowing you and us really to see what you all have come up with. Very comprehensive, quality videos. So there's 5 modules, and you're guessing, 3 days to complete the course, the consumer. There's assessments after all of them, and it's an asynchronous sort of course, self-paced. So there was one question I think someone had mentioned, and just teeing up folks to kind of ask questions. Oh, and there's a fee. You said there's a fee to using this. So the question that was in the chat box is, what about the final assessment at the end of the course? Does that need to be 100%, or what does one need to have?
There isn't one final assessment. Each lesson has 5 question assessments attached to it. So this will turn out to be, with 6 lessons, it'll be a 30 question final exam, so to speak. But it's not administered all at once. It's completed per lesson to move on to the next. And then once you complete the 6th and final lesson, then you're done. Mm-hmm. Achieved, the full certification of the course. And the certificates will be available immediately through our learning management system. So people can print them out, email them. We're also looking at the idea of utilizing digital badging, which is a relatively new concept in virtual learning, to have digital certificate that you can upload to like LinkedIn, to Facebook, or use on digital resumes and such. You'll be able to have those types of options on having your certification.
Great. There's a question from Deborah in the chat box. Would it be helpful for a client or customer to have a path for housing counseling if they answered no in the inside one, or at the end if they would want housing counseling to get to home ownership?
Oh, definitely. For people who are brand new, they have no, they're stepping into this blind in a lot of ways. Once they take the initial assessment, they'll just determine whether or not they are homebuyer ready. And if they feel they're not, then the housing authority has the option to assist that person, and it's going to be per their request, because you're not going to know for sure unless you're helping them do this, one-on-one, exactly how they answered. But the idea is this will also give potential home buyers the incentive to receive the housing counseling. Because I know from personal experience, it was always hard to get people into the office. You knew people were qualified, they had the income, they had the land, they had everything ready for a house, but they just didn't know if they were ready. And I think this new e-learning tool will be able to offer people that first kind of snapshot of what they're getting themselves into before they enter the tribe or housing authorities, homebuyer education program that's already established. And Another thing too is, this tool, this e-learning course can be implemented into existing homebuyer education programs. It doesn't have to be by itself. I mean, if you want to say that this is sufficient enough for potential homebuyers to receive the tribe, that's fine. But it could also be used as this stepping off point. This class that the tribal suggests to tribal members pursuing homeownership to complete first, so that they get the full spectrum of the industry and the education required. And then from there, they can create a specialized, housing counseling plan to make their homeownership priorities, successful. So it's a tool that can be used by itself or can be used in tandem with other homebuyer education programs and classes that you may also have in existence.
Thank you, Brian. We have about 3 minutes. So I want to know if there was any questions from the committee members with the South Dakota Native Homeownership Coalition. Are there questions? I know we have other guests that are here. Thank you for joining. You may also have questions that might be beneficial for others. So this is an opportunity to ask any questions. I see that there are a couple in the chat box, Brian.
Okay, I see a question from Joanna. Yes, there is a glossary. I'm sorry I didn't show it to you, but we have a very comprehensive glossary of all the key terms. And this comes directly from the Pathways Home participant manual. So all participants will have access to the NAIHC e-learning library that will have all attachments, appendices, everything that's involved in the original curriculum that all participants can access electronically. I have a question from Linnell. Do you plan on hosting another train-a-trainer for Pathways? Okay. This has been very, very, very challenging. We've received nothing but questions about upcoming train-a-trainers since last year. But as you all know, we had to put a halt to all of our Leadership Institute courses because I'm not implementing those virtual. Those are going to continue to be live courses. But we are exploring alternatives such as our e-learning program. But we have recently began pre-development of a virtual Pathways train-a-trainer. And we are in preliminary stages right now, but we are hoping, I'm not gonna make any guarantees, but we are hoping to offer a virtual Pathways train-a-trainer by this fall, late summer, fall, hopefully. Because the development or the redevelopment of an existing curriculum into virtual, that takes some time. So we are working on that significantly. So we want to make sure that happens. But before we wrap up, I also want to mention, I am personally developing a virtual course for recertification because we had approximately about 50 to 70 certified instructors that needed recertification last year. And obviously we were unable to offer the classes last year, but we have expired certifications on the table. So what I want to do is do a virtual training that's going to be a little bit more in depth than what I just showed you, where we actually complete the entire, or maybe first 3 lessons, we haven't decided, but the entire Pathways Home e-learning course. We will do that with practitioners requiring recertification, and also an in-depth demonstration of our learning management system on how to access the courses. Because once this goes live and we launch, housing counseling practitioners like all of you are going to need to assist the potential home buyers with accessing the course and how to access and navigate the learning management system and the actual course. And we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to have that necessary training. So as a way to recertify people who have lost their certification, since 2019, 2020, this will be a way to recertify, that they'll be able to completely review the course. And this will be like a 2-day, very immersive step by step on how to implement the e-learning course, not only for yourselves, but within your communities. So stay tuned for that. We'll definitely send a marketing blast to our entire membership. And I'll also reach out specifically to the South Dakota Native Homeownership Coalition and its affiliated committees on that in the coming weeks.
Thank you. If everyone can give an emoji, applause. Thank you, Brian, for being here. We appreciate you. For us to be able to be the first to debut and see what you all have created, people are definitely interested. I will definitely, we'll keep in the loop. We'll circle back. We want to see how we want to access this and support our practitioners here in South Dakota. And again, thank you so much for
Thank you.
presenting, and we'll definitely be in touch again. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow at the Home Buyer Readiness Committee call. Thank you, Brian. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Thanks, everyone. Take
Thank you.
care. Be well.